hello, BookTube. You're going to notice right away that the background is different. The only dog hair in view is on me. That's because I'm in Chris's house. Chris and Giselle, their lovely little apartment.
Hi.
And we thought that we would correct something that was done wrong by my technical incompetence and go back to the Q&A, the impromptu Q&A that we did on this channel a little while ago.
What day was that? That was a while.
That was a while ago. It was the last time. It was you came up for the Boston Public Library book sale, and we did an impromptu Q&A on this channel. Giselle said, if you make a video and ask people for questions, you'll get enough questions to answer in real time before too much time has passed.
These are all questions. There's tons of questions.
That can't possibly be because nobody thinks I'm that interesting, and she was right. A bombardment of questions came, and we answered some of them, and I don't know what I did with that video. So we're going to do it again. We're going to go back to those questions and ask them again in a new environment. When the video's over, I'm not going to go, because there's no little hippo here. There are no dogs in this apartment at all, unless you count me. I don't know if you count me or not.
You're an honorary dog.
I'm an honorary dog. It's absolutely true.
So I will be the mouthpiece for all of your questions.
He will be the mouth of Sauron.
Okay.
As we've learned in my last read along, those are his terms. Take them or leave them.
Okay, some of these questions are similar. I'm going to try to put them together. Let's see. We'll start simple. Did you graduate from college? And if so, what was your degree?
I did graduate from college, and I have a slew of degrees. And it didn't make any difference at all. None of them made any difference at all. English, and then history, and creative writing, and none of it made any difference in my life. So those of you who are sweating and aching and ultra anxious about your college degrees, depending on if you're going into medicine, absolutely keep sweating. But a lot of you want to go into books or writing, and it's much more about hustle and product than it is about anything else. So, but yes, I do. I have an alphabet soup of degrees.
I can attest to that for art as well.
Really? Is it true for art?
I have a degree in art, and it does not help whatsoever.
I think it's overrated. I really do. And look at the ruinous cost of it.
Lots of I'm so much student debt.
It's ridiculous. So young people come out of college with a degree they can't use and a lifetime of debt they can't pay. It's a no-win situation. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I strongly advise you, if you really want that degree, go to a hilltop community college. Go to the cheapest thing you can, because no one cares. It's all going to be about it, unless it's medicine. Because the last thing I want is 15 years from now to be face up on an operating table and have somebody say, hey, I saw your video where you said I shouldn't study. But everything else, the soft sciences, absolutely. But I made a mental note that I wasn't going to take 25 minutes for every question. So let's just charge on.
A book Olive asked, did it hurt when you fell from heaven?
Oh, right, that's right. She did. And I'll give the same answer now that I did then. No, it didn't, because as you can see by looking at me, I landed on my face.
Did you ever sing in a choir? What was the name of your first dog, and what languages do you speak?
I've never sung in a human choir. I should say that because there's different kinds of singing. I've heard singing done by many different species. And when you are hiking, when you're spending the night in the Upper Yosemite, far away from the park where fat German tourists go, way up in the middle of nowhere, you will join, if you want to, you can join a choir, but it's dogs, it's canines, it's coyotes, it's not, or even wolves. In the Yukon, it was wolves. And I've joined those choirs. I've sung in those choirs and been welcomed in them, but not humans, no.
What languages do you speak?
I speak many languages. I speak English. I speak it. What in my generation was a normal spattering of Romance languages, plus the Irish. But
I think people want to hear a list. There's at least 5 people asking that question.
Well, there's French, of course, because any civilized person can read and speak French. Italian, German, Spanish, the Irish. Bits and pieces of other things here and there. The stuff that you need to read.
And then on top of that, so besides being fluent in different languages, what can you understand by reading?
Ancient Greek and Latin. Okay. Ancient Greek with a dictionary. Latin I can sight read.
Yeah.
Latin I don't. Latin I can just pick it up and read it, including the linguistic and rhetorical nightmare that is medieval Latin. Cicero would not have understood it, but I can understand it.
So
But there's a lot that Cicero didn't understand that I do. He died owing me money. He
No one-
guts.
No one doubts that. What? Just kidding. Steve is 20. Steve is 28.
28.
What?
And sexy. Sorry, that's the beans talking. Oh, Deb has constantly told me don't snort on BookTube. I think I just did. Oh, all right, let's move on.
What was the name of your first dog?
I gave it in the last one of these, but it's not really. It wasn't an English name. It comes sort of like a soft M or N A R A, so Nara. It wasn't an English name. I was surprised to get the question.
What was your favorite Memento Mori trademark moment?
Oh, that's right. We're going back to this question. Oh, there's so many. There's the fading light, the hipster douchebag coffee, the great signature ending, and now the beard fetish. You got a nice beard, you're gonna get all sorts of Adam attention.
What is your favorite film?
My favorite film is The Lion in Winter. An old historical movie. Peter O'Toole, Katharine Hepburn, and Anthony Hopkins. Just fantastic. If you see it on Netflix, if it's ever on Netflix, you should watch it because it's. You look at it and you think this is a boring historical drama, but it's not. It's just lightning off the page. Oh my God, it's so good. Don't see the later version, the Patrick Stewart, Glenn Close version. Is absolutely awful. Actually funny. It's so bad. See the one that won all the Oscars.
So people want to know a little bit about your travels. They're curious what brought you to going to those places. Like you used to always talk about how many places you go to that you've been to. What made you?
Yeah, I've visited almost everywhere, and I've lived in a little over a dozen places. Where living meaning where I settle down, I talk to a landlord, and I just stay there for a long stretch of time. So I've been in all kinds of places, your hometown, but I've lived also in 13 or 14 places, everywhere except Australia, and yet. No matter how many times I say that, the next question somebody asks me is, has he ever been to Norway? Have you ever been to? If the next thing you say isn't Australia, the answer is yes. Antarctica, Patagonia, you name it. Walla Walla.
And they're interested in you were telling us that you inherited a bit of money, which helped you travel to a lot of different places.
Although, again, like with a university degree, money is less important than you think when traveling. It really is a question of how well you get along with other people.
For you, it sounded like it was just kind of an excuse to take the step and go out. Just
go. The YouTube is full of videos of people who travel for nothing, or almost nothing. There's an insufferable guy who does a video on going to places for $20. And, you watch his videos, and they're full of practical advice. The one piece of practical advice watching his videos that you really want is how to punch somebody in the face without hurting your hand, and the somebody would be him. But the videos are full of absolutely practical advice. If you are traveling in Southeast Asia, you can do so much with no money. And the same thing is true almost everywhere else. And maybe not so much in the 21st century, especially in Europe, where every single thing is monetized. But back when I did it, you'd meet somebody, and they'd be going to, the next city, and you would just go with them. So money's not really required. It wasn't. It might be now. But it doesn't matter, because I don't advise you to do it, because our Nazi president won't let you back in the country. So, and I don't want to lose any of you, so don't go anywhere.
Is there any chance we will ever get to see the infamous Muscular Teenagers?
Oh, that's right. I don't think so. Well, you never know. They think that BookTube is lame. Go figure. They film each other. Weightlifting all the time. They're total narcissists. I'll constantly have to explain, dude, what's that mean again? But nevertheless, filming on BookTube, sitting down, what would they do anyway? They don't even know how to operate a book. What's this? They're good kids, though. And they're all gone. They're all out of town.
Oh, you let them go to spring break?
No, I didn't want to. No, it was the collected ranks of BookTube that decided to get all Moses, let my people go with my teenagers, the ones who belong to me. So I'm lugging my own books now. Hope you're happy.
What is your favorite place in Boston besides the Brattle and the Boston Public Library?
The Boston Athenaeum, a private library here in Boston that is mind-bogglingly beautiful and very peaceful. I don't go there anymore. I can't really justify. If all I'm going to be doing, if I'm not visiting, if all I'm going to be doing is sitting and reading and writing on the computer, I can't justify doing that anywhere away from my girls who might need me. So I can't do this with them, but I can do everything else with them. So I don't go to the Boston Public Library or the Athenaeum anymore. I miss it, but it's going to have to wait, hopefully, a long time.
They're curious. Besides reviewing, do you have any literary ambitions? Like, I know you like to write your own things, but do you have any ambitions in relation to that?
I have thought about it, and I emailed Ben Sanders, of course, who would know, about self-publishing. Maybe a collection of reviews, collection of longer reviews, something like that, into a book that I control, and I can say, here you go. But other than that, the only thing the ambition I would have would be NaNoWriMo, or the fiction that I'm writing now. Because in 2017 I decided not to wait for November, so I'm working on fiction now. But no real ambitions with a mainstream publisher, or to get an agent and do that. I think I would like to publish a collection, a big fat collection, ebook of reviews that I go over and add commentary and whatnot. I think I would like to do that because I'm not. Some of my friends publish only in the New York Times, only in the Wall Street Journal. I publish all over the place. So even someone who likes my work could easily have missed all this stuff. So collecting it all would be nice.
This could have gone with the languages, but what language came most in handy when you were traveling?
English, hands down. Those who speak it don't speak anything else. Those who don't speak it as a native language want to learn it better. There's no other way. There's no better way to be taken seriously. There's only a handful of places I've ever been where knowledge of English, where the ability to speak English would cause trouble. Could cause trouble. Where if you could, you have best to hide the fact that you know English. But most places, no. Most places, English, absolutely.
In India Insomniac.
All throughout Russia too. More so than most. I don't know why. More so than most places. India and Russia, where it's just India. It is a language, but even in the poke holes where it isn't spoken, I don't know why that is. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Indie Insomniac.
Oh God.
Wants to know who you think the top 5 most overrated authors you've read are.
Top 5 most overrated authors.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Of all time. I guess you've ever read. I feel like I know the answer to this, or at least a couple of them.
What is that supposed to mean, that I've ever read? Are you insinuating that I've left some out? I mean, why would you say that I've ever read? Why would you add that to the question? That's like saying to a doctor, well, is this a problem with any of the organs that you know about? Like he doesn't know about some of them.
I can attest to this. If you show a book to Steve and ask him, have you read this? He will
That's
not.
all I do.
He will not answer the question. He will just stare at you. If you say, what did you think of this? Then he will answer the question.
Most overrated, James Joyce. I think... I don't want a certain person out there to again, I don't want her to disinherit me, but Charles Dickens. But also, David Foster Wallace, most of the people who are alive today, most like Jonathan Franzen or John Updike, the late and not lamented at all John Updike. Norman Mailer could do a good paragraph or two in nonfiction, but his fiction I've never understood. Jack Kerouac, oh God, Allen Ginsberg, all of the beats. There are all sorts of people who are overrated. The worst part of it was in the early 80s when there was a group of them and they all knew each other and they all knew that they were frauds. so there you had Philip Roth was writing a novel every year, John Updike was writing, and Norman Mailer was writing. These people that I predicted that John Updike's books would start to go out of print as soon as he did. As soon as he lost his pulse, as soon as he died, I predicted that his works out in the fringes would start to go out of print and that would work their way into those wretched Becht books and that they'd all be gone eventually. And I guarantee you I will be right. By 2030, at the latest, at the very latest, there'll be no John Updike in print and people won't know who he is. They won't have any idea who he is. He would be Lou Wallace. And I can't wait. But anyway.
What other superpowers do you possess other than ultra speed reading and immunity to venom?
I don't speed read. Speed reading means you gap things. You leave them out. And I can't do that because I'm a critic. I'm responsible for what I read, every line of it. I just read fast. And the only reason I do is because I don't do anything else. I concentrate completely on what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and I don't sub-vocalize. I don't do any of those things wrong. If you do those things wrong, you won't read fast. If you don't do them, you will read fast, plus lots of practice. But those superpowers, I have almost no sense of touch. That can help. That can count as a superpower if somebody wants to fight you.
You said you're immune to most venoms and like all that kind of stuff.
My hearing and sense of smell are well outside the normal range of a human being. Well outside. Mass General has done extensive testing on both.
So you are an honorary dog.
I am an honorary dog, yes.
Never have to sleep?
I don't sleep much, no. Probably a couple of other things that I'm leaving out. That's mostly it. But all of you have superpowers. I've said this many times in videos. You all do. If you just step back and realize it, you would see. Everybody does.
If you could have anyone write your biography, who would it be?
Me. What kind of a question is that? No, you get a hack to chronicle a hack. I would do it myself.
Talk about your times with Carl Sagan.
With Carl Sagan? Oh my God. That has to be Caleb.
Yep.
Well, there wasn't much time. I was a bookseller in Boston and knew everybody who was bookish. And, really knew them. Because you'd come into a bookstore, a retail bookstore, and you were looking for something very specific, and it's the same as true in retail bookstores now. The first two people you're likely to meet are likely to be well-intentioned and almost illiterate. So by the time you work your way into that bookstore and find someone who actually knows all there is to know about the book you're looking for, you hold on to that person. And that's been true in every bookstore I've ever worked at. And it gets you correspondence. It gets you snail mail correspondence. I've had tons of those. Everybody from Lauren Bacall to Julia Child. And it gets you people that come back and want to talk to you, like Stephen Jay Gould or Carl Sagan. You get to talk to people about all sorts of subjects. And it was in an earlier time when you didn't have strutting, brainless, baton-wielding martinets patrolling the sales floor of retail bookstores, beating their employees back to work. Don't talk. Don't think. Shelve. Use your PDT. Don't consult anything else. If the PD says that this book goes here and it clearly doesn't, I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from the PDT. It's the rule now in Barnes & Noble across the country, but it was totally unknown in the times that I'm talking about. In the times that I'm talking about, if somebody well-known, like Andy Rooney, Art Buchwald, if somebody like that had come into the store and started to talk to one of the employees, the managers and the employees would say, oh, well, we'll cover. Because there's a conversation going on here. We don't want to be rude. That doesn't happen now. No, that doesn't happen now. But then that was how it happened. Wow. And it was the impression that you get about him is absolutely true. A smart, poised, intelligent, kindly guy. A forward thinker. I have no idea what he would make of 2017. I hate to say it, but I'm almost glad he doesn't have to see it. Because he wasn't like Stephen Jay Gould. He didn't relish the fight with morons, and Gould did. He'd have loved to be. He'd have loved to be alive now, even though he would have hated the fact that science education and science initiatives itself are being gutted left, right, and center, and not just in America. Science is under assault all over the world, not just from governments, but from ordinary rank-and-file people who you interview on the street who say, "I don't think that's true. I don't really believe in germs." And that's a failure of education, yeah. Right? That's what Bill Nye. You interview him about this, and he will always say, though he won't say those people are stupid. He'll say that's a failure of our educational system. Because when these people were young and should have been being taught the right things, they either weren't taught at all, or they were taught the wrong things. Sorry.
I think this is what they want to hear.
No,
that's what they're here for.
25 minutes for every question.
Can I interrupt your question? You had a child? Holy cow.
Yes. She was absolutely adorable.
And you don't know how to cook?
We never talked about cooking. We talked about Earl Stanley Gardner and Perry Mason. That's all we talked about. and Simenon, all of the McGray novels. You just, have I got them in order? Do I need to read them in order? No, well, that's not very tiny, is it? That's like, do you want the answer or don't you? Do I walk into your kitchen, ask you a question, and say, oh, I don't know, that's not how chocolate bakes?
Going back to that one other question from a minute ago, have you ever considered writing your autobiography?
Yes, I did. About 35 years ago, I had a group of, this was before the internet. No computers. I had a group of correspondents. We were all in correspondence with each other. And I was done with the science fiction potboiler that I was writing at the time. I finished it, killed everybody off, and was ready to write a new book. And I decided to give everybody the option. So I wrote a list of 10 book pitches, elevator pitches of 10 books, one of which I would write next. And one of them was called Odd Dog, and it was my autobiography. It was going to be a 1,000-page autobiography, but it didn't get the votes. So there you go. 1515, my 1,000-page novel about the Italian Renaissance, got the votes instead.
Well, I think if you were to do that now, people would vote.
I don't know, 1515 was pretty good.
People want to know, when is your birthday?
Yeah, there's a lot of scholarly confusion about that. Is it in midwinter? Is it in early spring? There are cultures in the world that celebrate it at one time. There are cultures in the world that celebrate it at the other. If we ever get a definitive answer, I'll let you know.
Do you write a journal, like with your thoughts and things about your life? And
I do.
If you do, would you be willing to make a video about them or showing them? Or
sure, that's a good idea. Yeah, I do. I do keep a journal. I've kept a daily journal forever and ever. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Not just as a way of clarifying your thoughts. Never do it at the beginning of the day. Always do it at the end of the day. And set aside the time. I can't recommend it highly enough, not only as a way to do that, although there is no better way to do that. You might think that talking about your day with your person is a good way to do that, but it's not. Talking about a day will lead you to reinforcing your own first conclusions about everything that happened. Writing about a day forces you to think about those conclusions, and it's invaluable. But I also highly recommend it for those of you who want to write anything, because it's what you're doing with a written journal every day. If you can restrict yourself just to one page, but you do it every day, you are not only meeting a deadline, but transmuting your thoughts into just the right words on an absolutely daily basis. It puts that muscle into such good shape. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's not just for narcissists.
I'm going to have to skip over a few questions because there's quite a lot of them.
We don't have all the time in the world. The fact that I'm here means I'm not on the couch with the baby. so
Yeah.
We don't have all the time in the world. But I think this is just incredible. I think you people are just wonderful to have all these questions for a boring old guy. And I don't understand why you do. But I have a whole series of videos planned in observance of my 1-year anniversary. I let it go. I'm late. But I have a whole series planned of stuff that I want to do and questions that I want to ask, and that's one of them. So it can wait.
Okay, that's okay. What do you say to publishing companies when you're unable to finish reading an arc? Are there limits to what you'll read and not read?
Unable to finish?
I was thinking that when I was reading the question. I was like, I feel like...
Why would I be unable to finish? And also, I'm extremely old school when it comes to reviewing. The whole reviewing process. I helped to found a review journal, and because I helped to found it, I had a say in its rules. Open Letters Monthly is old school. And in the old school way of doing things, a publicist reaches out to you and says, I've noticed your work in X, Y, and Z, or I'm responding to your request. I'm sending you this review copy. Let me know if you place a review anywhere. Period. No follow-ups. No, hey, how's it going? No, thought I'd loop around. That's the phrase they use now. Nothing like that. That's not how it works. This is not a contractual obligation. This is not tit for tat. You send a review copy, and if I get it reviewed, either myself or somebody else, I'll let you know. But otherwise, no more communication from you. So I don't make any excuses to them at all. I'm not working for the publisher or the publicist at all. I mean, there are plenty of publicists that I know personally by now, and with them, it's a conversation. They understand the rules, young as they are. They understand the rules. So then there's a conversation. So if they send me, like for instance, there's a 1,500-page new anthology coming out of contemporary Chinese fiction, and I know the publicist, and I naturally want to keep him informed if I can find a home for that review. But something straight over the transom from a stranger, I don't give them progress reports of any kind.
How did you get started as a book reviewer?
It was in the Midwest. I was an editorial writer, not books at all. I was writing about politics. I was ripping Joe Biden to shreds for being a plagiarist. I was talking about how there's no chance in the world that an ex-actor will become president, and that if he does, it's the end of the world. I was doing stuff like that, 3 of those a week, and it was good money. But I wanted to do book reviews, and the arts editor was a dear, sweet old man, totally overwhelmed. And he had almost no staff, and they hated him because they didn't have time to listen to him. And I listened to him all the time. He used to go to lunch all the time. And I told him I'd love to do book reviews for you, and he let me do a few. And then one day at lunch, he said, "I'd kind of like you to take over." So I said, "You'd like me to do more book? Is that what you're saying? Do more book reviews?" "No, I'd like you to take over. I'm getting ready to leave." So I had his job, and all of a sudden I had freedom to do anything I wanted. I didn't have to pitch things anymore. I could just run reviews and find people to write reviews, and that was it. That was the beginning of everything. That was the beginning of the end. And after there, you do 200 reviews, something like that there, and they're entertaining enough. They're snappy. They start to get noticed elsewhere in a broader range. You can then go outward to the nearest big town, and then from there to the next nearest big town, and then from there to the Chicago Tribune. And it just kills me. It just kills me that at some point in that process, I thought, no, I should junk all this and start selling books retail. At the time, I thought it's more honest. You're not using euphemisms. You're not, paving over a bad book. It's more honest and more direct. Man, I don't know what I was thinking. Especially since I could have done both. I don't know why that didn't occur to me with the degrees that I mentioned. I have no idea why that didn't occur to me. Who knows what I'd be doing now if I hadn't paused for 25 years. But I did. I did pause. And then when I was thinking about getting back into it, some old friends of mine were saying, "Well, good luck. It's a young person's game. It's all hustle." Turns out that's not true. Editors only care.
You're only 28.
I'm only 28. And editors only care about what you can give them. They don't care about what you look like. And like I said, they don't care about where you went to school. They've got a hole in their coverage 3 weeks from now. They need to fill that hole. And when the 3 weeks are over and the hole is coming up, it's on the horizon, they need the person they hired to fill that hole to not say, my mother's cat got hay fever and I tried really hard. I can have it for you next week. They want perfect, clean prose at exactly word count, exactly when they need it. And if they get that from you, you could be Ed the Talking Horse. They wouldn't care at all. I'm very close to being Ed the Talking Horse. And I can testify they don't care. And I know this for firsthand because I don't care. I am also an editor. And I don't care if you have a huge amount of experience. The only thing I would care about in your background is if you've ever had a blood feud with the author of the book.
Just a couple more. What is the first book you remember reading?
The Iliad. I came to reading late. Very, very late. And it was the Iliad. Sorry, that's really bad. But nevertheless. There may have been books earlier than that, but that was the first.
Let's do one more. What was your favorite meal that your mom cooked for you?
Okay, book 2. I guess I haven't got this through. Boston Irish Catholic family. Those of you who are familiar with what that means, do you automatically think delicious home cooked meals? Boston Irish Catholic family. So we're talking cabbage that's been boiled for 4 days. So my favorite meal that my sainted Ma cooked for me would have been the time she had an appendicitis. And we ordered in. that would be it.
I think we covered almost all the questions, if not
Goodness gracious.
We covered most
Favorite meal my mother cooked. Good Lord. Of course, if she were here, she would not be pleased. What are you, wise? That's my cooking you consultant. But nevertheless, many talents. But the Irish, oh please. Anyway, that's it. That's thank you so much for the patience to wait till we could do this. God knows what happened to the first video, but we'll post this and we'll have a second one.
Now you get a half-hour long. The other one wasn't a half-hour long. This one's a half-hour long.
This was huge. Sorry, very very sorry. But we're gonna hit the road.
Yeah, we're going
We're gonna
back.
hit the road. Oh, we're gonna go back to Hyde Cottage by way of used books, which I imagine they'll be seeing.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you, BookTube. I'll see you soon.